Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
Welcome to IAYTD and welcome to our review discussion on Batman v Superman. Now before we start, the first section is going to be spoiler free, so just in case you want to know generally if you'd like the movie. The second part, which will be clearly indicated, I'll put sirens and stuff, we'll have complete spoilers in that part. So let's dive into it. I do want to preface this, that some of you are going to love this movie and some of you are going to hate this movie, and both of those are fine, okay? I can totally understand why someone would feel either extreme, so don't feel like you have to feel one way or the other. You're allowed to feel however you want about this movie, and I'm just going to tell you how I feel and some of my reactions to the movie. So the first big question that people are going to ask is this movie good? I'm a little hesitant. I think it's good. I think it's fine. But on the upside, this movie is cool. Okay, and that's the difference here. That there are so many cool things that happen. There are cool moments, incredible fight scenes. But when you look critically at why things are happening, why characters are doing what they do, none of it makes sense. But if you go in just wanting a cool movie, you're going to get it. But if you go in wanting I almost said coherent, logical movie that is a good foundation for the Justice League, you might be a little let down. Let's start with Batman. Batman is awesome. Ben Affleck kills it. Batman is the best part of this movie. His action scenes, his Batmobile scenes feel like they came straight from Arkham, the games. That this is how Batman should be. And people might question his morality because if you're familiar with the character, Batman doesn't really kill. And here he is murdering people. So some folks might have a problem with that. But I thought it was really well done. Jeremy Irons was great. The whole Batman, whenever he was on screen, was awesome. Then people are going to ask about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is barely in the movie. Okay, she only has, I think someone said 12 lines. Doesn't say a lot, but she convinced me that Gal Gadot is not the worst choice. We didn't really see her act much, so I don't know what she can do there. But she was convincing as Wonder Woman. That in kind of the one big fight scene where she shows up, I bought it. I believed it. I cheered when she did something cool. So I think the future of Wonder Woman looks bright. Next, they're going to ask you about Jesse Eisenberg. People are going to say, is Jesse Eisenberg good? What's his Lex Luthor like? His Lex Luthor is not at all what you expect or want Lex Luthor to probably be. And there's a reason for that, which I'll talk about in the spoiler section, but this is not who I wanted. People are comparing him to the Riddler from, I think, Batman Forever. Kind of Jim Carrey's flamboyant Riddler. He's not that bad. He is fine. It's just different. It might be hard for some people to stomach. I think it was a weird choice. I didn't mind his performance, but the writing of his character was not great. That literally he's doing crazy things and you have no idea why or what his plan is or why he's doing these two opposing things. It just doesn't make sense. And that kind of is the theme of the movie. Things just don't make sense. Lois Lane has kind of a subplot that kind of runs throughout the movie. Doesn't really make sense, doesn't really pay off, doesn't really have to do with anything, and only slows down the movie. The movie's almost 3 hours long, and it could have benefited from some trimming, and that might have been a section that could have gone, because it was just kind of slow. There were a lot of kids in the theater that started getting antsy because the movie is a little slow, especially in the first half. The last thing that kind of might upset some people is the visual effects. Most of the time look great. Doomsday, the big villain in the final climax of the movie, which is spoiled in the trailers, which is a bummer, looks not great. And the fight scene is fine. I thought the fight scene was really cool, and Doomsday was used better than I thought he would be, but he just looked not great. He looked like a video game character. He looked like the villain in The Hobbit, just completely CG. Didn't look convincing, which made the fight scene a little, I felt distanced from it, which is unfortunate. But on the upside, there are cool moments. Zack Snyder is a very visual director. And so there's moments where you can tell he was just like, I want this picture. I want this moment. And they all work. You know, there's moments where Batman and Superman are fighting that you're just like, this is majestic. You know, there's moments where it shows Superman saving people, and it's these big, epic, sweeping moments. And you're like, we've never seen Superman like this. We've never seen Batman like this. And they're great. But it's just the points that connect those that are a little confusing. So if you go in just wanting spectacular moments, you're going to get them. There's not as much action as you would expect, which is a little disappointing. That most of the movie is kind of dialogue driven, or there's investigating things for a long time. But you're going to get some fun action moments. You're going to get some really cool pictures. But if you go in thinking about the future of the Justice League, and you say, this is the foundation, this is where it starts, it's a little, I'm a little hesitant about the future, but I'm excited, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section once you see the movie. I'm excited, but this was a weird way to start. This is a weird foundation to start this universe on. So if I had to score this movie, I would give it a 3 out of 5. Because for every awesome, really cool thing, there was something that was like, wait, what? And some really weak links. So it averages out, it's fine, it's a good movie. Just go in with your expectations. I just want a cool, fun movie, and you should leave happy. So now we're gonna sound the sirens, and we're gonna get into spoiler territory where we can really talk about this. So if you haven't seen Batman v Superman, stop now, go see it. If you have, let's get into it. All right, so full spoilers. They killed Superman, but we know he's not dead. This was billed as Batman v Superman, and there was very little Batman v Superman. The final scene was really cool, but I expected they would have fought earlier in the movie, and that was the climax, and I was a little disappointed by the amount of fighting that they did. It was a cool fight. It just didn't last very long, and then it ended with, my mom's name is Martha. My mom's name is Martha. Cool, we're friends. It just felt... Batman's been trying to kill Superman for like 2 years, and then he, like, oh, your mom's name is Martha too. Let's go get him. And it just felt like a weird conclusion to that fight that so many people go into this movie wanting. And then really the movie turns into the death of Superman. So Doomsday does what Doomsday is supposed to do, which I appreciate. That they didn't put him in as a villain that is just wasted. That he shows up, he does evolve. He never really evolves into the Doomsday that I was expecting. Like, he gets some little rocky parts, but he could have been way cooler. And he kills Superman, which is cool. But this should have been like Man of Steel 3 or the finale of Justice League, not their very first movie with these people together. This was kind of the big moment for Superman, and they done it already. So I felt like the timing was weird, and you know Superman's not dead. Because one, this is the launch of their cinematic universe. You're not going to kill Captain America before the Avengers are formed. You know, so you know he's not dead. So you're watching this 10-minute funeral montage, and you just know, like, oh, come on. Like, hint that he is alive. So there was no emotion in that finale for me. You also know that he doesn't die because if you know anything about the comics, you're like, well, here's kind of how the story goes. Who knows how they're going to do that in the movies, but you know that he's not dead. And if this happened in the third movie or in Justice League, there'd be a small part of me that might say, maybe he is dead. Maybe they did kill him. But here you know that's not true. And even at the end of the movie, rocks start floating, whatever that means. And so you don't even leave the theater with that feeling of like, they killed Superman. You leave the theater thinking, why did we spend 10 minutes on a funeral? So again, it just undercut the emotion of the whole thing. Let's talk about Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor turned out to be Lex Luthor's son, Lex Jr., which a lot of people expected. But this means we never get to see Lex Luthor. That we never get to see Lex Luthor that we wanted has already lived and died. That is a bummer, just a missed opportunity. And I feel like that leads to a bigger concern over the timeline that they're creating here. That Batman has already served as Batman and basically retired. That's where we're starting. Superman is been killed. What's left? Lex Luthor, gone. I would appreciate this if it was like a graphic novel that was a out of canon story that was like, hey, check out this cool story. Cool, but let's get back to the real deal. And this is now the canon that the movies are sticking with. And so that's what concerns me a little bit, is that there's so many stories there missing or skipping, and I don't know why. So Lex being Lex Jr. does explain why he can be a little quirky and a little different, that he is not the Lex Luthor we know. I didn't understand at all why he was doing anything. Okay, there's this whole subplot of like this fight that happens in Africa, and they frame Superman, or it's blamed on Superman that he showed up to rescue Lois. And there's this whole stupid story about the bullet. Didn't care about any of that and didn't understand how it paid off. Because they're trying to get people against Superman, but Superman already destroyed Metropolis. Why do you need this little showdown in Africa to trigger that? Didn't understand that. And Batman already wants to kill him, so that whole story of Lex was behind this Africa thing, just zero relevance. And it just confused people. I was confused and I kind of knew what was going to happen. And then there's Lex's plot to have Batman fight Superman. Somehow just happened, coincidentally, that day. Lex did nothing, and it just happened, which, whatever. But why is he also creating Doomsday? If his plan is for Batman to kill Superman, why is he also, does he want to destroy the city? Does he want to destroy the world? Why is he creating Doomsday if his plan is for Batman and Superman to fight? Is it a backup? Because really, creating Doomsday will just unite them. And Lex is shown to be somewhat of a smart guy, so he would recognize that. So I didn't understand why he was creating Doomsday. I didn't understand why the writers made Doomsday so confusing. The whole Zod's body and the blood, like what? Didn't understand that. It could have been much simpler. It could have been stowed away on the ship. There is a emergency protocol that releases Doomsday in case of emergency. Bam, he finds his case, lets it out. It's an accident. He didn't intentionally create it. That would have made much more sense. Some cool moments. Wonder Woman, awesome. Her lasso, did not expect that. I'm curious if it's actually a lasso of truth, if they actually go that route in the movies, because that'd be really unique. But it was badass when she had it. And she just was really cool in that fight scene, so I'm excited for the movie. But the other foreshadowing that this movie did for those solo movies was ridiculous. We see the picture of Wonder Woman and the cast of the Wonder Woman movie, and then the theme hits, and it's like, boom, 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 boom. And you're like, what is this? What does this picture mean? Because I know that Wonder Woman is going to have a solo movie, and this is probably an allusion to that. But the person next to me in the theater that does not know about the DC cinematic universe and what's happening is probably wondering what is the deal with this picture. And they do it multiple times. So later it's like, she sees the picture and it's like, bah, 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 and it's like, what is, I don't understand. That was a little weird. The other references to the Justice League didn't like, especially Cyborg's, that they were basically like, here's Cyborg's origin story told in 20 seconds. Just strange, out of place, didn't like it. Flash, I would have been okay if it was just the security footage, like fine, whatever. But when Flash comes from the future to warn Batman that Lois is the key, one, I don't think anyone knew it was Flash. I only knew because I knew that Ezra Miller is playing Flash and I recognized his voice. But he looked like Iron Man. He was in like a suit, like a metal suit, and his like mask was open. And it's like, who is this? What does this have to do with anything? And no one ever mentions that moment again. It's not like Batman says, someone came and told me from the future that Lois is the key. And it's like, oh, at least it has to do with something. It's like they shot that yesterday. And they were like, oh, just put the scene in. Made zero sense, didn't like it. There were better ways that they could have hinted at the future characters. Aquaman didn't get any dialogue. Literally stares at the camera for an awkward amount of time. Like if it was like a camera or a drone or a person, he would have done something. Instead, he just like floats and stares long enough for the audience to be like, oh, is that Aquaman? I think that's Aquaman. Is that the guy from Game of Thrones? And then gone. Just could have been much better. I would have preferred Lois Lane is drowning, right? Aquaman saves her, and you're like, who is this guy? And he's like, I'm here to help. Flash shows up, and they manage to stop Doomsday, and then it's this ending of like we all need to replace Superman now together. That would have made more sense as opposed to these weird little video snippets. Didn't like that. Some other cool moments. I did appreciate kind of the montage of Superman saving people, because that's where Zack Snyder had those pictures, right? He's like, I want Superman carrying a ship. I want Superman stopping an explosion and bringing, the shuttle back down to Earth. Like, those cool moments are very memorable and very Superman. So that was cool. Visually, very cool looking. Okay, I think that's really all I have right now. All right, so down in the comments, tell me about your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. What did you like? What did you not like about this movie? Again, I think it was fine. I think if you expect a cool time, you're going to have that. But there's a lot of stuff that just didn't make sense. Felt a little weaker. So tell me what you thought, and we'll see you next time on IAYTD.
You're gonna go to war. That son of a bitch brought the war to us.